There is a German proverb which is very useful in our own lives, and it is simply, patience conquers the devil. You see, if we have the gift of patience in our lives, if we know how perhaps to strive to be a more patient person, we might be able to root out that presence of the devil and the evil that may exist in our lives. From a very young age, our parents do try to teach us patience. Whenever it is that we want to eat, or we want a certain toy, or we want to go out and play, parents can try to tell their children, well, you need to be patient, you need to wait. But we don't really understand that. And I think in our society today, whether we are a child or an adult, it is even more challenging to be patient because people don't want to wait. We don't want to wait at the red light. We don't want to wait to get out of the parking lot after church on Sunday. We don't want to wait at the store at Publix. We wonder, well, how come they can't go faster? I want it on my time. But you see, it's not always about what we want. It's the fact that we are in partnership with God. And in Jesus' explanation of the parable of the weeds and the wheat today, he's speaking very much about how in our world we all work together. The angels, the saints, the presence of God, the presence of the kingdom. And unfortunately, the presence of evil is there. And in order for us all to work together and for God to be able to conquer and to be able to overcome all evil, we have to have patience. You see, those who were tending in the field, they right away blamed an enemy. And yes, the enemy had come and planted the seed, the weeds that were there. On one hand, it tells the farmer that, and the landowner, that there was good soil there. He was very blessed because the weeds wouldn't grow where there were rocks. The weeds wouldn't grow in the sand. So he had a good base. He has a good foundation there. But he also had to say to the slaves, to those who were tending the field, you need to be able to be patient. I will determine when it's time to separate the weeds and the wheat. You see, the root system of the weeds and the wheat is very intricate. And sometimes you can tell if something is a good plant because it comes out pretty quickly. But often a weed, forget it, like dollar weed in your front yard. You try to start getting it out and it just keeps pulling up more and more of the St. Augustine grass. Just keeps going and going because its root system is very complex. Well, so is the devil. The devil is very complex in our lives, and he kind of pops his head up in sometimes the most inopportune of times when we least expect it. And sometimes the devil and evil is kind of woven in through our lives. And we have to kind of let it be because there's going to be a time when we can root it out. But we have to be patient. We have to be patient because just as they wanted to rip up all of the weeds right away, they probably would have ruined the whole harvest, and then there would have been nothing to produce. But we have to be able to allow God to help us root out the evil. And we have to do that in His time. It's not always our time, but it's working in partnership, in a nice harmony with the Lord. And when we work in harmony with God, we give our lives to Him, we trust in Him, we trust in His providence, and we have to be able to be first and foremost patient with Him. Things do not always happen in our time. When someone asks for something, and then they start getting frustrated because they ask God, God, I'm looking for a better job. Will you get me a better job? Well, we have to be patient about that and make sure that we're doing all that we can in order to be able to ensure that we're being led in the right direction. God, I have this particular sin in my life and I just can't seem to get out of a hatred for a certain person. Well, are we really working towards it? Are we seeking healing with God in partnership with Him? We have to be patient with God. We have to be patient with other people. Probably the root of most sinfulness that comes with people, whether it be spouses, whether it be parents, whether it be children, especially in a family environment, whether it be with friends or at work. It has to do with patience. We have to really respect the dignity of life in each person to realize that we allow them to kind of flourish. We allow them to kind of realize that when the God in me respects the God in you, well, then we realize that it's not always what we want, but it's, again, what God wants for both of us. So how can we be more patient in our homes? How can our homes be places of peace? How can our homes be sanctuaries? Well, one thing is to not have the TV running constantly. Another thing is there doesn't have to be noise all the time or be scheduled all the time. Here we are in the middle of summer. I hope that as a family you have days where, and times, or an afternoon, or an evening, or an hour, or a half an hour, where you just be at home, just be together. Hopefully you like each other, so you want to be together. But just enjoy the presence of your home being a sanctuary, your home being a domestic church. Oftentimes people come here to 1020 Montgomery Road. They say, oh, it's beautiful. The campus is kept up nice. I love going to the grotto. Love coming here to the Blessed Sacrament Chapel, or go to Adoration in the Chapel of the Angels on Wednesdays and Fridays. Sure, because it's quiet. We crave that. We need that. And if we find it, then maybe we can be more patient with other people. We don't always have to have noise constantly around us. So maybe if we create an environment that can foster a sense of peace, well, we may have more patience. And when we have more patience, maybe we'll have less sin. But finally, we have to be patient with ourselves as well. Sometimes, we have to realize that we are works in progress. My friends, we are not completed vessels. And so for ourselves, we have to look inside of our own hearts and realize God's presence in our lives. Allow ourselves to be present to Him in order to work out what our own personal challenges are. How is it that we maybe can realize that, have good and healthy expectations of who we are, what we can accomplish, and enjoy life in the moment? Not always seeking something that's way off, or perhaps the pie-in-the-sky dream, but rather just realize the blessings that there are today. Maybe realize the good soil that God has put down for us to grow in. And when we realize the good soil, maybe you're able to realize as well how we are growing. And as we grow, we mature, not only physically, emotionally, but we grow spiritually too. So as we hear these parables today, how can we perhaps realize that God is calling us to be more patient with what is growing in our lives? How can we be more patient with God and realize His providence? How can we be more patient with other people, especially our family, make our homes places of peace? How can we be more patient with ourselves and realize the blessings that God has given to us, the fertile soil that He has put down? Because inevitably, patience will conquer the devil and allow us to be closer to God the Almighty.